So we're Safety Clean. A lot of our founders, a lot of our execs still now are Safety Clean alum. They started Crystal Clean. We pick up drums from people. We recycle oil. We provide absorbent and wastewater services. Our most profitable business segment is our environmental service, our containerized drum program, where we come to your business, pick up a drum, and take it to the grave for you. Oil services, we operate a refinery in Indianapolis. We take used motor oil, recycle it, and sell lubricated oil to your Citgos, which they use as blends in your cars or in businesses. One of our growing businesses that I just want to spend a second on is our antifreeze business. We're small enough now where the Prestones and the Peaks of the world don't care, but that's our fastest growing segment by far. We're growing about 30% a year. Same kind of thing with used oil. We're taking your spent antifreeze from a dealership, oil change facility. We take it to our facility, recycle it, and boom, brand new antifreeze.
So you're taking the contaminants, the water, and
Yep. So in the process, we burn off the water. A lot of times you'll have, now that you have that DEF that goes in, that'll be mixed in, and it's all part of the process. Oil is usually in there, and we kind of just all take it out. So brand new antifreeze. Yep. And when you talk about a raw product, we're getting the spent antifreeze for free. So it's a good gig. London did a good job introducing me. The only thing I wanted to add is I always have a struggle, and this is the perfect conference to talk about. I have a struggle about analysis and operations. So a lot of times I want to analyze things so much that I don't care how the operation runs. I just want to save the most money, and that's where I always butt heads with everybody. So it's been a transformation for me. So when I started at Crystal Clean, I was the first analyst that they had ever hired. They just used accountants to analyze, and it's not really a good idea. I mean, all the other companies I've worked for usually have an analyst per business unit. Mine was transportation. I knew nothing about transportation. I was coming from a payroll company, so this is all really new to me. Rail cars, all that stuff. But initially, the problems just bubbled up to the surface real fast. So we had no visibility of what was going on. Our Railyard at our refinery, which holds about 40 cars, was congested. Cars were sitting there, dwell times too long. So that's a huge issue. You can't get product in, or old product in, new product out. We used to track our incidents, so either on the road, at our refinery, at any of our facilities or branches, with literally notebooks like this. And so there was no way you could tell what happened. Did this happen before? What did we do? What's our change? What's the root cause? We couldn't track any of that. Properties. We have 86 branches now, 5 hubs, 1 refinery, and I think 6 depots. We used to track our properties, all the specs on it and everything, in Excel. And you'd have multiple tabs, so you'd have 86 tabs of branches, 5 tabs of hubs, and that's how you would find stuff. And you can't operate that way. SOX compliance was a complete nightmare, especially from a transportation perspective and freight pay, which I'll get into. And then the last but not least is communication with not only our internal, so the branches, but also our customers. When are they going to get their shipment? Where is it? What process are they in? So we started down the road first with transportation is trying to get vendors in and to see what we needed. We met with a few transportation management's TMS vendors. And on the left here is what we kind of figured out. So they're very expensive. They're vanilla, so it's here. This is what you get, and that's what you have to do. They take forever to implement, and we just had a large acquisition, so we needed to implement really fast. And loss of control. A lot of these, especially like the TMWs of the world, they just want your loads. they don't really, they might want to solve your problem, but they want your money, not for the software, but for the transportation. So we wanted something cheap, fast, and we could fit to our business, because I'm sure everybody thinks that their business is unique, and we thought ours was too. So, and we really wanted a true partnership instead of getting a out-of-the-box solution. So I apologize for being a TrackVia homer, but this software, this platform really helped us. Now, it's process management workflow. You can build whatever you want for whatever your business needs. Now, this hit us really hard because it was low capital, right? So I didn't even have to get authorization to spend the money. It was really fast to implement. It really was flexible. So, and I'll get in, especially with our transportation management system, I'll talk about how flexible. Our IT department really focused on sales, kind of like almost every other organization, right? They don't really need anything from operations. We're an afterthought. So we didn't have any objections, but we didn't have any help from IT. So we were on our own. So we're building this ourselves. Now, we met two gentlemen who started their own company called Calabash Solutions. They had worked with TrackVia before at Navistar, Shell, and Honda. So they introduced us to the software. Now, they have gone out and started their own business, and they've done really well, and they really help us. Now, they're business process experts. They do know TrackVia. They do other software. They're definitely great at low code, so they're not programmers. They don't know SQL. They really focus on the individual process, and the buy-in from the bottom up is what I really like, because the CEO of my company could say, I want to save $15 million. But if the bottom guy doesn't care, doesn't like the software, doesn't like the app, then we're not going to save the money. So that's what they're really good at. So I'm going to go into detail on two of our fixes. So as I mentioned earlier, our transportation costs were out of control. And I know when I was kind of going over this presentation with my VP of operations, he kind of took offense to that. But we really didn't have any cost controls in place. So if a trucker showed up at one of our hubs, and they would literally go to a board and say, yeah, I'll take that one, and that one. And of course, for the driver, whatever their pay is, 15% or per mile, they're going to take the best one that suits them, not Crystal Clean. Our detention, either at the origin or destination, we're running at about $300,000 a year. And if a guy was at the refinery for 5 hours, we didn't have anything to say that he wasn't or was. So it was really hard to fight with our carriers. There was a really large risk at our refinery, and I don't like sharing this story because it makes my company seem incompetent, but we're Heritage Crystal Clean. Our largest shareholder is Heritage Environmental Solutions. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're pretty large. They're also in Indianapolis. We had a truck of acid meant for a different address. They were let into our refinery and offloaded into one of our tanks. So, forget compliance, forget permits, it was insane. Scheduling also became, as the refinery started to expand. We started at 50 million gallons a year. We went up to 75. Getting the product started to become a nightmare. Now, with our FCC acquisition, once we purchased them, they're a similar sized company that operated mostly in the east or the south. We couldn't. We had one internal driver previously. He went from the refinery to the hub to the refinery. That was it. We inherited 40 internal drivers. We couldn't allocate their costs. We couldn't see what they were doing. Next issue, freight pay. We open POs in our general ledger system to match with what we need, and there's no way to match it up. So at the end of the year, when the auditors come crawling and say, hey, you have 600 open POs, we couldn't tell them, well, we used them, we didn't use them. It was impossible. So I use this slide because we have a running joke of our software that we're in 1980. So I apologize, I was 4. But this is literally what we would use to dispatch for our entire company. And you can see, like, you have the revision numbers because there'd always be constant revisions. Hey, we need this. Hey, we don't need this. And, with Excel, you can do whatever you want, right? Just put in tanker numbers, costs. It was getting impossible to manage. And then when we had FCC and we added all that revenue and all those routes, it became clear what we needed to do. Now, I have to admit, I stole this from Calabash. This is kind of their mantra. Think big, start small, scale fast. Obviously, we needed a solution right away. We had to start small because people were not used to using software and low code. So if, I would consider myself somewhat of an expert in Excel and Access, so I can code it myself. So at the bottom level, we needed the ability to dispatch, so to get trucks where they needed to go. We needed to track all our assets, trucks, tankers, dry vans. We needed to pay our vendors, and we needed to be able to speak to the auditors intelligently that we did pay the right amount. Now, previously, before we had something, we probably overpaid vendors, but there was no real way to tell. I added this screenshot because the main, besides all the beautiful colors and all the terms and stuff, is really the process. Anyone in our company can request a shipment. Step 2 is plan the load, pick a carrier, assign a cost. Step 3 is accepting the shipment from the carrier side and actually executing it. And then number 4 is to pay the vendor. That's pretty simple. And this really has been great for us. So long story short, on the TMS portion, we were able to reduce our freight just because we could see what we were doing. And we could see, well, why are you sending this here and not backhauling here? And we could start connecting dots. Last year alone, we were able to reduce it by $5 million just because we could see what we were doing. And our customers are more happy because we can track. They can tell us, hey, where is this load? What are we doing? When is it supposed to deliver? We can actually tell our branches, you know what, that load will be there at 10 a.m. That's when it's scheduled for. And my favorite is the audit compliance. We can tell the auditors, oh, you need a list of these invoices. You need to prove that it happened. Well, here you go. Everything is stored inside TrackVia, and we could be done with it. So when we rolled this out, we had to do it slow, just because with so many things intertwining at our company. So we picked 6 locations that had internal drivers, because we knew that they would have internal and external drivers coming in. Then we moved on to our hubs. At the time, we only had 4 hubs, but they were doing about 400 moves a month, and that worked fantastic. Then our final rollout was the refinery, which is our more complex because they're not only going to customers and receiving product, but they're also doing inner refinery moves and dropping off supplies, raw materials. Now we have 150 users just on this application alone. And as one of the things as we acquire companies, this is one of the things I introduce to them just so we can track what they're doing. So, when you buy a company, you can get those synergies right away. Now, the second study I'll dive in here is our Railyard at Indy. There wasn't a process, and a lot of times our rail cars have problems. So whether it's a stuffing box, a valve, somebody wanted to spray paint some nice words on the rail car, which we can't send to the customer. And here's a true story about that. We had one come in, and someone wrote some nice words, and obviously if it's going to a customer, we should probably fix it. Well, it went right out, and the customer was pretty upset about it. But our solution definitely fixed that. Now, our refinery, our tracks only hold about 40 cars, and that's pretty tight. We can't really function around that. And one of our biggest problems is if the FRA came in and said, hey, you had a HAZ load leave here, it looked like it was overweight or underweight or whatever, it would be like, okay, from when? 2 years ago? Okay, we'll see in about 2 years. Because it would be impossible to find the paperwork. But now we can store it. Oops. So this is very similar to the TMS. It's just a nice process. We call in the cars from the CSX, who services our plant. We do our inbound inspections on number 2. We schedule who the car is going to go to, in or out. Then we actually load or unload the car, and then those go to outbound. Now, the great thing about this, besides that now we have a process and we can see what's going on, so even our CEO could say, hey, how many cars do we have on site? How many lube cars? What are we shipping? All that. You can get all that information, but my favorite is the lab. So we have to test our cars before they come in just to make sure that there's not PCBs in there, there's not acid in them, whatever. But then when we're sending it to the customer, we actually test it twice, about halfway up the rail car, and then we finish and then we do that. So that means we're loading a rail car halfway, we're stopping, we're doing a sample, we're waiting, we're loading it again, and then we're taking another sample. So that's why you see the lab doesn't have a number next to it, because they can, depending on where they are in the process or what kind of product it is, if it's a lube load, they can actually fill that halfway and move on to something else and then come back. So it's led to great efficiency. We can flip, I think we only used to do about 10 cars a day in and out of raw product and new product. Now we're flipping about 20 to 25. Now this one didn't go as smooth as the TMS. We actually almost completed this, about a year and a half ago, and we almost took, I'm just call it a year before we started it. On this one, we went with the opposite. Even though we're using Calabash to help us, we went too big, too fast. Now, this is the only location that we have this at, but they've been operating the refinery for 10 years the same way, and it was just too much change to them. The refinery really likes their Excel spreadsheets and their paper, so it was really hard to tear it away. But the parallel testing was the major selling point, because as soon as I got either a phone in their hand or an iPad, and they could do the inspection right there, take pictures of the great words on the rail car. Once they did that, we were home free. Now here's some results on the applications that we've built. So the TMS, I told you, we reduced our freight spend. Everyone can see what we're doing. We have enhanced communication. Everybody knows what's going, what's coming. The RMR, our Railyard management program, we streamlined that process in and out of the facility, so we're getting better turns on our rail cars. Everybody loves the real-time access. I think probably more of a Big Brother thing, but it works. The property for me, the only reason I really put this on there is really for me. So if we're in our refinery right now is in a shutdown mode, I have to find somewhere to put the product. Well, now I can go in our property application and say, hey, we have 8 spots up in Elgin. Let's put them in there. Instead of going through a spreadsheet after spreadsheet. The incident reporting, it's not used as much as I like, but we don't have repeat issues. And if we actually had a carrier that kept spilling and spilling and spilling, and everyone was like, well, I think they've only done it once or twice. Well, you go in there, you pull a report. Well, no, they've actually spilled 5 times. So maybe we either fine them or get rid of them. Now I'm the director of logistics for another week at Crystal Clean. Then I'll be transitioning to a continuous improvement role, which I'll be the only continuous improvement person there, which sometimes I feel like I've always only been the only guy there. We're working on this right now, our inventory management system. So at our depots, refinery, and hubs, we have all this bulk inventory. Right now we do it weekly and in Excel. So some people say, hey, we picked up a lot last week. Here's the inventory on Monday. Well, now we don't have any truck capacity for the entire week, so we shut down programs. We can't go out and get more water to process. So this would kind of change, kind of like the RMR. We'll have real-time access. We'll be able to plan going forward. The Rail TMS is a big one, and I hate to always kind of brag on this one, but we use a system now, a software, that helps us track and trace our rail cars, helps us with our freight pay, but it's vanilla. But we needed it. Now we're going to build one at a reduced cost in TrackVia, and that way everything can start talking. So when you start shipping a car from a branch, it'll go right into the refinery, our RMR program. So everything will start to talk. The Calabash guys, which I always call the TrackVia twins, which I don't think they like, but they have always made fun of me because I think I do have this one kind of HCC vision where everything talks to each other. And I did steal it from ADP, even though we never did it at ADP, but that was our goal, is to have one system that kind of talks to each other. So the only negative on this Rail TMS is we have 44 branches that use Rail. So you'd have to go to 44 branches to roll this out. Everyone has a different spur. Some are in a big facility with hundreds of cars, and some are like that picture I had where there's 6 or 7. So it's going to be a large undertaking. Any questions for me?
Are you going to do the inventory management system with the TrackVia also?
Yes. Because I have a vision, and this could be just a vision, but we have a wastewater treatment plant in Kilgore, Texas. This is where we're going to pilot it at. So if he's processing, so much volume per day, per week, and I know I have in my TMS, I know I have 10, 15, 20 loads coming in there, at least in my head, I think we can not only make a schedule, a plan, so he can keep running and processing that material, but so then everything can talk, and so he knows it's coming, and we can reduce his levels, and we should be able to do that at all the places.
Lessons learned, if you want to go back and do it again, after what you learned all this journey, what would you do different?
That's a tough question. I kind of think I'm a little bit of a jerk, so I kind of probably would do it the same way and push hard. But I think, honestly, what Calabash has taught me is to just really get the guys who are going to be using the app every day to get the buy-in, and not just because, and I say this to my people all the time, just because it's my idea doesn't mean it's good. So I think if starting at the bottom is where it's at, then I think that's what I would do, especially with the RMR. We did spend probably a month down there before we even started building, but I probably would go slower. Yeah.
We're not patient.
No.
We know that being impatient. We want it now, fast and furious.
Yep. Because I know it's easier. I know it's a lot easier to go out there. I mean, we literally have at our Railyard, we call it the boondocks. That's how far it is away from the actual building. So if you're out there every morning, when it's 30 degrees, actually walking the tracks with the pen and paper, I mean, it's pretty rough.
Using GPS, anything for these carts, rail, what do you?
Well, they are when they're tracked when they get scanned in. Yeah, they're scanned when they come into the facility.
RFID?
Yep. No. Someday. I want to do that to our trailers too. RFID our trailers. Yeah. All right. Thank you.